The first time she saw the van, it looked abandoned, half buried in a ditch, hazards blinking like a weak heartbeat in the dark. She had been driving for hours, desert highway, no towns, no music that made the emptiness feel less empty. Her water was warm, her throat was dry. Every mile marker felt the same. She told herself to keep going. She slowed anyway. The van's engine was still running, white paint dulled by dust, a long scrape along the passenger side. The side door hung open an inch and creaked when the wind pushed it. She rolled her window down 2 inches. "Hey, are you okay?" Only the click of cooling metal answered her. She pulled onto the shoulder, careful to leave space between her car and the ditch. The hazards on the van blinked, blinked, blinked. No one sat behind the wheel. She stepped out. The night was colder than she expected. The smell of wet brush and hot brakes hung in the air. "Hello?" she called. Her voice felt too loud. Up close, the van was warm. The keys weren't in the ignition. On the floor lay a gas station coffee cup and a half-crumpled map. No purse, no phone, no wallet. The kind of emptiness that made everything worse. Then she heard it, not from the van, from the trees. A slow shift of leaves, a foot testing its weight on dry twigs. Another step, closer. She didn't wait to see who it was. She backed away, keeping her eyes on the tree line. Another step in the brush. Then stillness, watching. She got in her car, locked the doors twice, hands shaking. The hazards on the van kept blinking as she pulled away. For a moment, the ditch swallowed everything behind her, and the highway opened like a lifeline. For 3 miles, there was nothing in her mirrors but darkness. Then a shape slid into view. Low, boxy, silent. The van, its headlights were off. Only the faint silver ribbon of her tail lights reflected across its grille. She tapped the brakes to see if it would back off. It drifted closer. She changed lanes. So did it. Her pulse banged in her ears. She turned the radio down to hear better, as if the danger made a sound she could catch before it reached her. A green exit sign appeared. The van edged into the left lane as if to pass, then fell back again. It knew how to be seen just enough, and how to disappear just as easily. She took the exit toward a gas station bright as a ship at sea. The van stayed on the highway. Relief washed through her so hard her hands hurt. She pulled to the pumps. The attendant looked half asleep behind glass. "Call the police," she said. "A van just followed me with no headlights." He reached for the phone, glanced past her shoulder. "Where?" She turned. The highway ramp curved back into view. The van was there at the base of it, in the dark beyond the lights, angled toward the station like it was considering whether to come in. She moved her car closer to the storefront where the security cameras could see her. The van idled for a long time. Then it rolled past the entrance and disappeared down the frontage road without ever turning its lights on. When the officers arrived, the van was gone. They took her statement by the pump. White cargo van, no plates she could see, long scrape, headlights off, followed for miles. They nodded, tired and polite. "Could be nothing. People drive weird out here," one said. "Do you want an escort to a motel?" She didn't want to get back on the highway alone. She said yes. They followed her to a budget place with a buzzing sign and a single-story hallway of doors. The night clerk slid her a key card without looking up from his tablet. "Room 112, he said. "Ice machines outside, cameras on the lot." She backed her car into a space under the brightest floodlight. Something about seeing her bumper in the window felt safer. Inside the room, the air conditioner rattled like loose screws in a tin can. She double-locked the door, set her bag on the table. She told herself to shower, to eat, to sleep. She turned on the TV for noise and sat on the edge of the bed, fully clothed, staring at nothing. It was close to 2 a.m. when she heard it, an engine idling, not loud, not revving, just present. She stood to the side of the curtain and lifted it an inch. At the far end of the lot sat a white van, half in the shadow where the light didn't reach. No hazards this time, no headlights. The windshield was a hole of black. She let the curtain fall. Her heart felt too heavy and too fast at the same time. She picked up the phone to call the front desk. Before it rang, the engine outside cut off. The sudden quiet made the room feel smaller. She pressed her ear to the door and held her breath. Nothing. The air conditioner clicked. The TV murmured about weather in some other town. Then she heard footsteps on the concrete walkway, slow, measured, not approaching fast, not running, just arriving. They stopped outside her door. She could feel the distance like a hand held an inch from her face. The handle tested once, a gentle, curious rattle against the deadbolt. She stepped back without meaning to. Her fingers found the metal bar of the swing latch and pushed it tight. The handle turned a second time, harder. Metal flexed, the latch held. Front desk, a man's voice said softly through the door. No accent, no urgency, too smooth. Just checking on the noise complaint. She didn't answer. She hadn't called about noise. Her phone sat in her palm, cold and useless. "Ma'am?" the voice tried again. Farther down the walkway, a room TV clicked louder. Somewhere beyond that, a cough. Silence at her door. Then the slow, careful slide of something thin against the jamb, like a laminated card testing the latch. She swallowed hard. "Police are already here," she said, loud enough for the camera above the walkway to catch her lips moving in case that mattered. "They escorted me." The thin thing withdrew. No footsteps, no retreating breath, just absence. The air conditioner kicked off. The room went still. She stood there long enough that her legs trembled. She moved to the window and lifted the curtain a fraction. The van was gone. She didn't sleep. She sat in the chair with her back to the wall and watched the door until the sky bent toward gray. At first light, she carried her bag to the front desk. The clerk looked up this time. "You have cameras on the lot?" she asked. He pointed to a small monitor behind him, split into 4 feeds. The top left showed the row of her building. A white van sat at the far end in a frozen frame, half in shadow. "Rewinds are only for the manager," he said. "He gets in at 9. "What about your night security?" He gave a small, helpless shrug. On the walk back to her room, she saw them. Wet footprints on the concrete where the shadow of the awning had kept the dew from drying them. They led from the far end of the lot to her door. They stopped there. She crouched. On the metal of the handle, a faint smear like the edge of an oily palm. She reached out and stopped herself. The doorknob was still warm. She checked out without showering. The officers from the night before were gone from the highway, replaced by sun and heat shimmer. She told herself she'd drive straight through to the next city. Daylight made everything feel like a misunderstanding. On the on-ramp, a utility truck blocked the right lane. She merged left. In her mirror, a vehicle came up the ramp behind her. She felt the recognition before her brain named it. White, boxy, too clean, the van. It stayed 2 cars back in the left lane, never gaining, never falling away. She took the next exit without her blinker. It stayed on the freeway. She told herself to breathe. She told herself she'd been scared, and fear makes shapes out of light. She told herself the prints on the walkway could have been condensation from the ice machine. Oil on the handle could have been a mechanic's hand hours before. She lied until the lies sounded true enough to drive by. At the city limits, she passed a rest area. In the corner of the lot, under a dead bulb, sat a white van she had never seen before and would recognize forever. The side door was closed this time, but as she drove by, it slid open a few inches on its own and held there. She didn't look again. She kept her eyes on the road until buildings stood on both sides and other people's lives filled the spaces between the lights and the dark. She changed her phone number that week. She sold her car a month later. Sometimes on quiet nights, she thinks she hears an engine idling somewhere it shouldn't be. Sometimes, when a delivery van trundles past her apartment at noon and the driver waves, she feels nothing at all. But when she dreams, it is always night, and the highway is always empty, and the door to the van is always almost open, not for anyone, for her.
The desert highways at night are the loneliest places on earth. No music loud enough, no headlights bright enough to make you forget just how empty it really is. I'd been driving for 6 hours straight. My eyelids felt heavy, my mouth dry. The gas gauge dipped lower with every mile, the orange glow of the warning light a constant reminder that I was cutting it too close. I should have stopped earlier. I knew that. But each exit I passed looked darker, smaller, less safe than the last. When the blue sign appeared out of nowhere, Rest Area 1 mile, I told myself it was a blessing. Just a bathroom, maybe some water, a stretch, that's all. Quick, in and out. The lot was quiet when I pulled in. Too quiet. Two semis idled at the far end, their engines a low growl in the night. Near the entrance sat a lone white sedan, its windows tinted so black they looked painted over. The rest stop building itself was a squat box of concrete, lit by buzzing yellow lamps that cast long shadows across the cracked pavement. I parked beneath the brightest lamp I could find. My SUV looked small there, fragile, exposed. I double checked the locks, grabbed my phone, and hurried toward the restroom. Inside, the smell hit first, bleach trying and failing to cover mildew. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, flickering in places. The tiles were off white, stained in the corners. Every step echoed, too loud in the emptiness. The stalls were all open except one at the end. The door was closed. The lock turned. My throat tightened. I told myself someone was inside. That was normal. Just another traveler. I picked the stall closest to the door and tried to move quickly, but halfway through, the restroom door groaned open. Footsteps, slow, heavy, measured. They stopped just outside my stall. A shadow spread across the floor. Broad shoulders, long legs. Whoever it was, they were facing me, just standing there. I froze. I didn't breathe. My chest screamed for air, but I held it until my vision swam. Then silence. The shadow drifted away. The faucet squealed. Water ran, then shut off. The door clicked closed. I waited, counted slowly to 30, then 60, then 90. My knees shook as I stood. I pushed the stall door open with trembling fingers. The room was empty, all except the last stall, still closed, still locked. I told myself to leave, now, but my feet carried me forward anyway. I pressed on the door. It swung open easily, empty. The lock had been snapped, bent from the inside. Something was wrong. Very wrong. I darted for the exit. The night air hit thick and heavy. My SUV was still beneath the lamp, my reflection warped in the windows. The white sedan hadn't moved, neither had the trucks. I reached for my door handle and froze. The rear passenger door was cracked open. Just a sliver, but enough. I hadn't left it like that, I was sure. My blanket was in the back seat, folded over from earlier, but now it was higher, lumpy, shifted in a way that didn't make sense, like something was beneath it. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My skin prickled as though every nerve knew before my brain did. Someone was inside my car. I forced myself to keep walking, pretending not to notice, past my SUV toward the vending machines. Their glass reflected the blanket in the back seat and the subtle rise and fall beneath it. Breathing, headlights spilled into the lot. A pickup truck rolled in, slow, deliberate. The driver didn't get out, didn't move, just sat there, engine idling, lights on me. My heart pounded. I couldn't run for my SUV, couldn't scream. My phone showed one flickering bar of signal. I knew it wouldn't matter. I turned toward the semis instead. My legs shook with every step, but I forced myself forward. I pounded on the door of the nearest cab. A curtain shifted. A trucker's face appeared, lined and tired. I begged, pointed. Please, someone's in my car. He squinted past me, then opened the window an inch. You sure? Yes, please. My voice cracked. They're waiting for me. He hesitated, then unlocked the door. I scrambled inside, shaking so hard I nearly dropped my phone. The locks clicked down again. The trucker leaned on the horn. A blast so loud it shook the windows. My SUV jolted. The blanket shifted violently. The rear door opened wider. Then movement. The pickup truck by the entrance flashed its headlights once, twice, 3 times. My stomach turned. This wasn't random. They weren't strangers. They were working together. The trucker grabbed his phone, dialed 911. His voice stayed steady, giving details. Mine tumbled out in broken gasps. We sat together, watching my SUV. The rear door swung wider. A shape shifted inside, but no one stepped out. By the time state police arrived, the SUV was empty, just the blanket left crumpled on the floor. No footprints, no sign of anyone leaving. They searched the sedan, empty. The pickup had vanished. The officers exchanged looks, murmured to each other, then turned back to me with forced calm. You're probably tired. Could have imagined some of it. Do you want to drive your car home? I shook my head. Number never again. They offered to escort me back onto the highway. I refused. I couldn't sit behind that wheel knowing someone had been breathing inches away. So I left it there, beneath the buzzing yellow lamp, keys still inside. The officer promised to tow it to impound. I rode back into town with the trucker. Neither of us spoke. Not really. What was there to say? But later that night, lying awake in a motel bed, I thought about it, about the open stall, about the shadow that didn't belong, about the blanket rising and falling in the back seat, and about the pickup truck's headlights flashing 3 times like a signal. I never saw their faces, never heard their voices, but sometimes when I drive past another rest area, I swear I see a white sedan parked at the entrance, always the same distance back, always waiting, and I wonder how many other cars they've crawled into, blankets pulled tight, breathing quiet in the dark, waiting for the driver to come back.